I'm sorry about what I said when I was hungry. Well, this is the story of my life. I remember getting sicker and fatter when I hit 50 and getting shamed in a doctor's office in a really subtle way. I was told, well, you're postmenopausal, you're going to gain weight. There's really nothing you can do. And when I was younger, I was shamed. In my early 20s, I went to a doctor and I had lost 10 pounds on Slim Fast. And he had told me at a previous visit that was just for me that I needed to lose weight. And then I was at this visit with my little brother. I was really there for his visit. He had an ear infection and I was the parentified child. I was caring for my brother and sister, and my parents worked a lot. We all struggled with weight, and I at the close of the visit, I said, "Doctor, about weight," and he said, "Oh, honey, with your family, it's going to be really hard for you to lose weight. Don't stress about it too much. Take care." And then he shut the door, and I was so angry. I thought he's just written me off as a fat girl. And I was fat. My family worked really hard. We did not have great food habits. We lived in Columbus, Ohio, which was a test market for fast food. Not blaming, we put this in our mouths. But I was pretty much just taught to snack. I was taught that fast food was okay. You just had to have it in, I didn't even know if it was to have it in moderation. I think it was just taught low fat, everything low fat. I was stressed. I had the expectation that I needed to do something practical with my life. I needed to be a doctor. I studied a lot. I mean, it was really ridiculous. And again, I was always just sorry. I was eating to stuff my feelings. And then after this shaming, I just, doubled down on Slim Fast, doubled down on low fat. I yo-yo dieted my whole life. And then as I get into my 50s, I'm hitting pre-diabetes. And I was powerless. And here I knew where this was headed. I knew that I was headed for blindness, amputations, horrible neurologic effects. And I had doctors telling me, "Oh, you're just postmenopausal, this happens." Well, how come my great grandmother didn't gain weight as she aged? How come she was walking around in her 70s, better looking, healthier than I was in my 50s? I looked like hell. I had an MD and an MPH, and yet I couldn't even go up steps. My knees and back, all this, because of the weight, I couldn't even walk my dog. I mean, how pathetic was that to be a doctor where these degrees are degrees? Because my great grandmother with a second grade education, who was a seamstress but had home cooking skills, had her ancestral traditions, she was so much healthier than I was. And sadly, my mother went to college. She learned all the low-fat dogma. She was taught to be ashamed of the traditions of my great-grandparents that were high-fat, lower carb eating, Eastern European cooking. That was shame. That was taught, oh, these are uneducated people eating all this meat and fat and high-fat dairy, and they're stupid, and we're eating low-fat, and everyone's getting diabetes and sicker and fatter. So I'm sorry about what I said when I was hungry. Again, I remember when I heard about intermittent fasting and lower carb eating, and I thought, oh my God, I will bite your head off. I am so pissed. I'm so angry. How dare you, say I need to go more time between. I can barely go 2 hours between eating. Oh, that's because I was pre-diabetic. I was on a blood sugar roller coaster, and I was eating so low fat. Nothing had any nutrition. I was eating breads and pastas and noodles and, whole wheat noodles. And, I don't know how to be a thin vegetarian. I wish I did. I have so much respect for people that follow a ancestral Indian diet. You know, there is health in that diet. There's so much wisdom in an ancestral version of that diet. Not so much in the you know, salad all day thing. I tried that and it didn't work for me. So how I eat now is lower carb, higher fat, more time between eating, so I can wind back the pre-diabetes thing. Because, you know, I remember this too. Oh, well, you're postmenopausal, you're just going to gain weight. Okay, yeah, but how come this wasn't true before? Well, because the food they ate didn't affect their insulin level like our food. Their patterns were more like a bear. They feasted and fasted. They ate 2 big meals a day. They had time between eating, and their insulin levels stayed lower. And the insulin is downstream from the hormones. So again, the works of Jason Fung, Eric Berg, Mindy Pelz also has a wonderful YouTube channel explaining this. And I studied all kinds of biochemistry in medical school. I took all kinds of tests, but this was completely hidden from me. So that's why I'm making these videos. Don't write yourself off. Don't just say, I'm getting menopause, now I gotta get fat and get diabetes. That's not true. Yes, it's genetic. Yes, I have genes that are prone to diabetes. However, these are the same genes as my great-grandmother. She was in a different environment. You know, I'm a cactus living in a rainforest. There are people with genes that can handle this diet, this high carb diet. I'm not one of those people. I really have to rely more on the lower carb, higher fat, more ancestral food. And then also, again, the people pleasing. You know, sometimes I have to choose myself over pleasing somebody. And that's hard. That was really hard. I was not programmed for that. I was programmed to take care of everybody else. I was programmed to put myself last. And that also has been a big part of my changing my brain game. Jerry Wise helped change your brain game. I also really like Tim Fletcher's material about complex trauma, because my eating also was a way of sedating myself. It was a way of numbing myself. I wasn't eating for energy, really. I was eating so I could just push through another shift, push through a job that I hated, push through relationships which weren't working, push through just, you know, stuff that I really didn't enjoy. I didn't have a lot of joy in my life, except the carbs, you know. And again, then the carbs became my soulmate. The only problem is I love the carbs, but they don't love me. They were giving me diabetes, you know. So there was no room for me in my life. There was my work, my food, my stress, and there was no time for me. I was just kind of a mule. I was just kind of a thing in this like cog in a wheel of my like treadmill life. And I think about that too. It was just on a treadmill. Oh, I just got to eat. I got to eat. Now I got to exercise this off. Now I got to. I never had time to exercise it off. I was so exhausted, and it doesn't have to be that way. And I challenge you to, you know, listen to Eric Berg, Jason Fung, Pradeep Jamnadas. Those are really the inspirations behind this channel. But know that I'm a real person, and I'm a postmenopausal person. I'm 56 years old. In my head, I'm still 6 years old. And I'd love to eat all the carbs. But I also love my life. I love my life more. And I think, too, it's like a bad relationship. You know, at a certain point, I remember thinking like, oh, I can't live, you know, without these things that I love. You know, I love these things, and they're giving me comfort in my life. You know, I love them. And of course I will always love them. The only problem is they don't love me, and they're killing me. And you can quietly kill yourself in plain sight, and no one will condemn you. And I think about my first fat shaming when I was in my 20s. It was this doctor was very well-meaning. I later worked with him. He never recognized who I was, and I never told him who I was. And I understand why didn't he tell me? Well, he didn't know. He was a marathon runner, and he had a wife who was cooking for him. He wasn't in my fast food world. He wasn't in my world of mac and cheese and shake and bake, and a mom who was working her butt off, had zero time to cook. I was supposed to be cooking. I was a child. I was a teenager myself. I was exhausted, and these foods were my comfort, and it was socially acceptable. So yeah, that was my first food shaming. And then my next food shaming in my 50s is like the just written off again. Well, now you're too old. First I was from a fat family, and because I was from that family, I was destined to be fat. And then when I was in my 50s, I was just destined to be diabetic and fat because I was old. So these doctors don't mean badly. They just didn't know how to help me. And I didn't know how to help other people either. I think about that. Throughout my career, I was yo-yo dieting, and at times people would ask if I was pregnant when I was in the clinic. I was so embarrassing. And I had the truncal obesity. I was stressed out of my mind. And, people would ask me, how do I lose weight? And I'm like, do you think doctors would look like this if, if we knew, again, it is a journey. You're going to find your own way, but don't write yourself off because you're over 50. Don't write yourself off because you're over 40. Don't write yourself off because you're a healthcare worker or a truck driver, or a person in the Midwest or the South, or a person who, well, my whole family's fat. We always ate fast food. I ate fast food, mac and cheese, hamburger helper. This was thought to be healthy. And again, the traditions that were of my great-grandparents were all written off. And it's like so tragic when I look back on it, all the suffering. But we can reclaim our health. A tree without roots dies, and I didn't have any roots. I remember thinking like what do I do? The doctor said this, a low fat, high fat, blah, blah. I had roots. It's just that someone cut, the food pyramid and my medical education cut me off from these roots. Society cut me off from these roots. The teachers in my third grade class who taught me the food pyramid, they didn't mean bad, but they popularized all this garbage, which was killing me. And these are fun time special foods. I'm not anti McDonald's. I'm not anti fast food. These will always be part of my heritage, but they're a fun time friend. You think about it too. Yeah. The cactus is dying in the rainforest. So there's nothing wrong with the cactus. It's just in the wrong environment. Again, there are palm trees here. There are people that can be thin and that love to exercise and that don't really care that much about food. And they love to run. Well, those people are great. I'm not those people. They eventually will hit a wall as they get older because our insulin, and as we age, our insulin levels, our insulin sensitivity does tend to go down. So I can't handle as many carbs as I did when I was younger. I just can't. But it doesn't condemn me to a life of diabetes and obesity. So again, thank you so much for your time and attention. I hope to see you in the next video. Please like, subscribe, comment. Take care. Talk soon.